Hi, it's Kendall here. New around here, welcome. Not new around here, what is up, home skillet biscuit? I went to go see Baby Girl twice. Originally thought I was going to see a slightly elevated, but still shitty gender bent 50 Shades of Grey graduation step, but like 10 years too late. Or if not that, something in that, Fatal Attraction milieu that I really like. I think it's just fantastic. It's always so formulaic and so bad. So I was looking forward to it. But this was done by A24, so I knew they like to be a little subversive. So I was curious what I was going to get. The first time I saw it with two of my friends, and we did a double feature with Nosferatu. That will henceforth be referred to as Baby Ratu if you do the double feature. And at the end of it, I felt like the movie had something, but I don't know if it did anything with it by the end. The end had me feeling very dissatisfied, and I couldn't quite figure out why. I didn't think it was a bad movie. It was better than I was expecting, which was kind of disappointing because I wanted trash, But I was like, man, what is it about this movie? And me and my friends talked about it because we're nerds. So we sat there and talked about it for like 3 hours. And I was just like, did it chicken out? I felt like the movie chickened out. So then I ended up watching it a few days later with my boyfriend because I was like, I'm curious what his thoughts would be about it. And when we left out, I told him how dissatisfied I was with the ending. And he said, no, I like the ending. The problem is I think the ending was to a movie that they didn't make, or it's the ending to only one part of the movie. And I was like, yeah, you're right. That's why I keep you around. Released last Christmas, so canonically it is a Christmas movie like Die Hard. Baby Girl is a film about a staunchly manicured female CEO named Romy, played by Nicole Kidman. And if you watch it at AMC, it's like Nicole Kidmanception. Heartbreak feels good in a place like this, and so do spankings. Who winds up in a torrid BDSM affair with one of her interns at her company, whose name is Samuel. And the premise of a powerful person having an affair with an underling is a cliche as old as time, but as you are probably well aware, that cliche is usually a man, particularly an older man, who's in a position of power that ends up like fucking a secretary or something. But the point of this movie is to make that person in power, that CEO, a woman, and see like what are the differences that arise with that. One of the things about this movie is that it feels like it started with the premise. What if 50 Shades of Grey, but instead of a powerful businessman, it's a powerful businesswoman? But also let's keep a very status quo dom sub dynamic because the woman is the sub and the man is the dom, regardless of where they stand in the hierarchy of the company. And so most of the movie is kind of playing around with giving and taking power. And I think in its attempt to do that, I find that it's at its weakest. Because there's a lot of situations where it's like, ooh, well, he's kind of in power right now, and she's kind of in power right now. What power trumps the other powers? Is it that she's a woman and he's a man, and stereotypically men have more power? Or is it that she's a CEO and he's an intern, but those things happen at the same time? What? But I guess for me, my mind always goes to, I don't give a the gender dynamic of either of them. If you signing his checks, you shouldn't be fucking him. You shouldn't be fucking him because she's a married woman with like a kid or whatever, but 2 kids. Beyond that, you shouldn't be fucking somebody that works for you. Let's start there. Even if he was somebody else's intern, I wouldn't feel the same way. But the fact that it's your intern is like, I don't give a but yes, a lot of the movie is posing a lot of questions about who has power when. Is there someone that has an overarching power? And I think yes, which is why that's kind of like a brick wall to me. And I think also because the movie poses a lot of these questions while also existing in the status quo of, again, a female sub and a male dominant, it's like... And it takes every second to play with that and complicate that, to ask a lot of questions, but not to necessarily opine. I don't think that it's actually sitting there saying one way or another. It's just like, hey, what if? And I think, again, that's kind of a dead end for me because my what if is always going to go to, well, she's his boss. I don't give a about any other component at this point. And sure, he exerts that he has certain levels of power, but at the end of the day, she's your boss and she should have known better. So though I don't think that component of the movie really goes anywhere, and it feels like I'm following the movie as it kind of bumbles through that. One component that I think that the movie does pretty well is exploring the themes of shame and how that, when left to fester, shame can completely implode you, destroy everything you love and what you built for something that seems so silly. It is funny because like the whole movie could have been just a conversation with her and her husband. Like y'all could have figured out something so that she can be in this BDSM relationship either with you, or maybe you open the relationship if you think you can possibly do that, or like whatever. It could have been a conversation, but instead it turned into a very risky business, and hence we have a movie. But I do find that the theme of shame and exploring shame is the thing that the movie does actually quite well. And I say all that to say, a little disappointingly, that the movie is not a completely laughable piece of shit. I was left wanting, certainly, but it's beautiful to look at. Everyone does a good job acting. It's bordering on good if, again, you can get past the kind of wading through blindly the subject of power, because that component makes the movie feel a bit tedious. Also, probably what you guys are, you little nasty, dirty birdies. I just read Misery, one of my favorite movies, but I just read the book. This bitch is crazy, but she got me saying dirty birdie. Not for a video, just letting you know. But anyway, if you're a dirty birdie and you want to know how the sex is, I actually find that this movie is probably one of the best, if not the best, like silver screen representation of a female orgasm. And there were moments, unironically, that were kind of hot to me. It's not going to be for everybody, but I got it. I got it. Like if we're just talking about the sex itself, I get it. So yeah, that's Baby Girl. That's my spoiler-free talk about it, review of it. So now let's buckle in, do the movie recap, go for a ride after this ad. I forgot to send it over to Admiral Kenny. Thank you. Hello everyone, this is Admiral Kenny, and today's video is sponsored by Russet. It's sponsored by our friends over at Raycon. Raycon's everyday earbuds offer you style, function, and quality at a fraction of the price of other premium audio brands. And with their new and improved everyday earbuds, also come with active noise cancellation. We can block out the world. Oh, yo, dog. If need be. With a 32-hour case battery life and an 8-hour playtime, you're sure to have this stick it out through most travel, through most occasions where you want to block out your dog. And they also have a new quick charge function so that you can supercharge for 10 minutes, which yields 90 minutes of battery. Ergonomically designed to fit the largest range of ear holes, and optimized gel tips for a comfy fit. Weatherproof, sweat resistant. In the new year, I'm definitely listening to a lot more audiobooks, a lot of audiobooks. And this has come in clutch because it won't die on me in 4 minutes, because it can be very annoying when other headphones just clock out. Like, I'm 78% done. Don't die on me. So if you would like to try out Raycon, you can get 20% off. All you have to do is go to buyraycon.com/Kenny to get up to 20% off site-wide. That's 20% off of everyday earbuds as well as all of their other products site-wide. Big thanks again to Raycon for sponsoring today's video as I go get my dog. The film opens with our main character. Her name is Romy. It opens with her mid-coitus riding her husband, who is Antonio Banderas, who I did not recognize until like halfway through the movie. I was like, who is this man? Antonio Banderas. Oh, he's fine. He's still so fine. Oh my God. If you don't know how to treat him, I can try to figure it out. Anyway, she's in the midst of coitus, and she's also in the midst of faking an orgasm. She's pulling out the stops. She whipping hair. She's like, you know, it's, and it's pretty obvious it's fake. Like, who hair flips? Afterwards, she gets off her husband, and he is just like staring into her eyes lovingly. He's like, I love you. And she's like, I love you. I love Antonio Banderas' character, the husband. I don't know what his name is. I didn't feel the need to look it up. I call him the husband. He's a really cool dude. He's very attentive. He's a very like communicative and empathetic partner. And so I think that makes this story particularly frustrating for me, because it's clear that if she wanted to talk to him about it, she could. That her sexual needs aren't being met. It's a her thing. When he goes to bed, she kind of slinks off, again, full of shame, going to a room where she gets her computer. She watches pornography, on the floor while watching some like pretty boring porn. It was like a girl asking for a man to spank her butt. It's like, whoa there. But that does it for her, and that's what she really wants. Anyway, she's watching it while touching herself. She has one of those like pretty realistic orgasms, and that's when I knew. I was like, oh, okay. You can tell a woman directed this, that part. Because when she comes, she always sounds like an injured dog. Like, which is pretty, yeah. But afterwards, she's on the come down, fully satiated, but also struck with a wave of post-nut clarity, where she has to have the shameful come down, closes her computer, making sure no one saw her. Now, Romy is the CEO of a Amazon-esque company that has robots that increase productivity, but she's also simultaneously a wife in a very, like, at least attempting to be in a very traditional way. She wears an apron. She's like, wears makeup, and she's always smiling, and her hair is always in a good place, and she makes lunches for her kids. And so she's very like, I'm a mom. She has 2 daughters, both that are like teenage age. I didn't catch their names because it doesn't matter. There's one that's a goody 2-shoes and one that's a rebel. Now, the rebel is an interesting kind of symbolism, like a version of Romy if she would have been able to take the chances that she wanted to make. But the problem is, rebel is annoying. She's an annoying little head. But this is the age where she should be able to be an annoying little head, I guess. The daughter's queer. She has like a mullet. She dresses kind of, cool and out there, but she's kind of mean to her mom, honestly, especially in moments where she's trying to exude this traditional femininity and be like a good mom, quote unquote. And I understand that crassness comes from a lack of understanding because you're like 16 or whatever, but that's mean. But yes, Romy, again, is the CEO. She lives off of like 48 cups of coffee a day. She gets Botox regularly. She speaks to the public almost as if her entire personality is crafted by a PR person. She's very tightly wound, prim, pristine, holding desperately to this like impossible level of perfection. And one day, while walking into the office, a very aggressive dog comes up to her, kind of threatening. But she's kind of talked down. The dog is talked down by this mysterious man who has a treat to give the dog, and the owner of the dog can come over and take her away, saving Romy from this situation. So a bit overwhelmed, she goes into work where she is greeted by her assistant, Esme, who is actually played by the girl that looks like Janelle Monáe but isn't Janelle Monáe from Talk to Me. I love her. Esme comes in, bringing in the new interns that will be interning at the company to meet the CEO. And they're all like grinning and exciting, green, and, really, really happy to be starting their careers, right? But one of them, who, spoiler, will be our male lead in this, comes in immediately a bit like combative, power gripping by asking her arguably a bit of an inappropriate question for the first time meet. She don't even know his name.
Do you really think automation can provide a path to sustainability, or is that just something people say to make you like robots?
Okay, this is Samuel. This is the Samuel. As one of the interns, you have the opportunity to enter into a company-wide mentorship program in which new interns can be bundled up with people that have been at the company for a little while to show them the ropes, right? It would seem strange to me that a CEO would even be on this list of possible people because everyone theoretically would be grasping for the CEO of the company, but apparently nobody else does. And Sam is the only one that has his sights on Romy, but not because he wants to rise through the ranks, oh no, but because they have a very weird chemistry between them.
How'd you get that dog to calm down?
I gave it a cookie.
You always have cookies on you?
Yeah. Why, do you want one?
I think one of the most perplexing choices in the creation of Samuel as a character is that they chose to make him really weird. Like really awkward, but also charismatic in a kind of goofy way. I'm gonna get very specific right now, but for any of you that have dabbled in this particular foyer of white man, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's really giving tall, skinny, big dick, white D&D playing neurodivergent who f***s you through a wall type energy. I know it when I see it. Admittedly, I've never seen it on screen quite like this. But it's not comfortable to watch on screen, which is the point, I suppose. But it's you recognize it when you know it. It's disorienting that this intern is obviously in a type of control. Spoiler, not the one that trumps or justifies whatever the Romy is about to enter into. But again, this movie presents a lot of like what ifs, right? What if there is a situation in which maybe the lines of power aren't so clear? But the thing is, still is. In this context, it is. And maybe if he wasn't her intern, it wouldn't be as, you know, but it's pretty clear. Like they have like a whole written thing. I'm pretty sure there's like a code of conduct. It's pretty clear. Anyway, as we know, her sex life with her husband is already wanting. That's what opened the movie. That's what sets the tone. She doesn't really with it. Again, he seems pretty like interested in like wanting to make her feel good. Again, he's not like some like, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't give a if my wife doesn't come. He seems generally like a really cool guy. And so there are these moments where she's trying to shyly advocate for herself. And she kind of chickens out and regrets that she even wanted to do it, which is a very common and realistic feeling. She's like, I want you to touch me while I have a pillow on my head. And then she just kind of lies there like a corpse. And he's like, I can't do this. You're making me feel like a villain. Like I can't. And I get it, because it's weird. Come on. Like, otherwise it just feels like I'm like, and you're like dead. But that makes her like squirm back again. And they just have like normal missionary sex. And like, he does seem to be, again, open to making her feel good. But because she's having trouble navigating it, it's hard for him to navigate it either. Or at least that's how I read it. And so she sequesters her desires in her lone moments where she can go off and it's like, oh, that's sad. So she has a company Christmas party. Again, it's a Christmas movie where she chats with Esme. And in their conversation, Esme ends up saying something about how much she likes the name Romy and was curious like where it came from. And this is when she kind of mentions that she was raised by a guru in cults. I don't love this. I don't love this line. It's kind of a throwaway one. Yes and no. It's a thing that she says. And throughout the movie, there are these flashes of her as a child in these communes. And apparently she goes to therapies to try to unlearn her sexual desires, trying to figure out if it does have something to do with her childhood. I don't love the insinuation that this kink could be related to trauma. Later in the movie, she does say like, I realize that it's not related to my trauma. It's just something I like. But if that's the case, then why do we have this? I don't know. Like some people just have kinks. Sure, you can have kinks that are related to your past traumas, but sometimes you just like the thing you like. But to put this in the movie, there's this kind of, underlying suggestion that part of her desire to be submissive is perhaps in some way related to her being raised in a high control group. I need to work on my posture. Holy shit. Anyway, at the party, she goes off to the roof and Sam actually comes out there to smoke a cigarette. And that is where he basically tells her, yeah, you're my mentor. And though she doesn't seem to be particularly comfortable with that, she is notably intrigued by this awkward brazenness, if nothing else. To me, he kind of gives serial killer vibes. But honestly, again, the big dick, white, neurodivergent D&D player will have this vibe sometimes. Sorry. Anyway, but it's still weird to see on camera. He's like, yeah, so you're my mentor, which she seems to be like, hey, tell me what to do. But that doesn't stop her from taking his tie that he drops at the party and like sniffing on it and choking on it the next day in her office. That escalated quickly. Now, like I said, her kids are kind of mean. Well, particularly that one kid is kind of mean. And the rebel kid, the one with the mullet, basically says that Romy looks like a dead fish because she gets Botox. Wait, not basically, verbatim. She says, you look like a dead fish. Like a little asshole. And so she seems to feel like particularly insecure about her looks when she gets to the office. And Sam notices the little like poking scars that she has. And he's about to say something along the lines of like, you don't need that. But then redirects and says, you look good. Eventually they start having their first official solo meeting, which she seems to want to rush through quickly. It's very tennis match going back and forth. Okay, challengers. It starts off with her having this dominant energy as the boss who is a tenured businesswoman versus the green newbie looking to learn from her. She talks about how she ended up getting her job. And the conversation slowly warps into how he remarks that she seems like a person that likes to be told what to do.
You think I don't like power?
No, I think you like to be told what to do. Sorry, that was inappropriate.
I don't fully understand how he reaches this conclusion. I guess just observing her, just assuming, if I know. But she soon goes to rush out from this like charged conversation, and he closes the door and gets close to her, and she makes the mistake of leaning in. She leans in to kiss him. He goes back, dominating, I guess, and repositions himself and then makes out with her. Once the realization of this makeout has set in, she panics, regretting whatever just happened, but obviously not enough because there's still an hour and a half of the movie left. So she's rich, right? That's pretty obvious. She's a CEO of like an Amazon company. So she has a vacation house that her and her family will go to frequently throughout certain parts of the year. And this is where she will see the rebel daughter cheating on her girlfriend with the girl that lives next door. And like I said, rebel, kind of a little asshole. She's like, I love my girlfriend, but I wanted a side bitch. So I don't know, little shithead. But notably, Romy doesn't chastise her for this or even opine on the cheating. She's just like, if anything, again, the rebel daughter feels like a mirror. What a Romy without shame maybe would have looked like, would have acted like, if she had been given the opportunity to make these shameful mistakes as a child. But alas. We in too deep now, you like 50. Romy begins avoiding Sam to reestablish control, I assume, in her mind. She visits her husband in the theater, which is something that she doesn't often have time to do, so he's kind of surprised to see her. Her husband is a playwright, and so he's directing his next play, and he's really surprised to see her there because she doesn't tend to have time to visit him in the midst of his work. He's happy to see her, but definitely kind of like, hey, you should get back to work. Yeah, I'll see you on opening night or whatever. I need gloss. Holy shit. I have no collarbones anymore. Anyway, Romy decides to go to one of the social gatherings that her company has. She doesn't tend to go to them because, again, she's a CEO. She's busy. She got shit to do. But she just happens to make it to this one. And guess who just happens to be there? Esme, her assistant, as well as Sam. You know the gist. She kind of presents this as an opportunity to chat with Esme and another woman executive or something of the business about bringing more women into the business. Esme is a very ambitious young woman. She wants to get a promotion. She wants more women in power at the company. She's very vocal too about that, to Romy about hey, are we going to talk about my promotion soon? I would like a promotion. Yeah, that stuff. She's still networking, particularly with another woman of the company, but Romy is not listening, really, because she's too busy looking at Samuel kind of laughing with other interns. He seems to be pretty unfazed by her and really having a good time with the other interns there. But suddenly, a real lactose dangerous glass of milk, my tummy grumbled when I saw it, appears at the table. It would seem that Samuel had sent over a glass of milk for the kitty. Meow. But again, in this power grab, she goes for the milk and drinks it, begrudgingly obedient.
Good girl.
It's opening night for the husband's play and Romy makes it, but she kind of rushes off soon after it ends because she had an emergency at work, which leaves the husband disappointed but not surprised. But there is no emergency. Lo and behold, it's Samuel. He was texting her, telling her to come to the office where she will find that he has left a note for her, a time and a meeting place for the next day. Apparently, it's an address to a hotel room. She enters before him, and it's gross. There's no way I would sit on anything. It had piss-tinted wallpaper and hair on the duvet, if that's what you want to call it. Gross. And he arrives, kind of delighted, almost surprised that she's there. And immediately, again, as if she didn't, make all these steps to come here, she's like, sit down. I need to reestablish power. She tells him that the only reason she is here is to tell him to stop with his absolutely inappropriate behavior. You're sending me milk. You're texting me all hours of the night. What is wrong with you? It's a weird scene. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's a very strange scene because, again, much in that like tennis back and forth thing that we had earlier, they kind of go back and forth where he's like, okay, I'm gonna establish power by saying to get on your knees. And when she refuses, he's like laughing, confused. He's like, okay, is that what you want? Do you want to be here? Do you want to get on? Like, what do you want? Like, I'm confused. And along the way, he asserts ironically that he's the one with power over you now because I can make one phone call and you lose everything.
I think I have power over you because I could make one call and you lose everything. What, does that turn you on when I say that?
And again, I think this is obviously the movie playing around with power. Societally speaking, woman, less power. Old, more power. Old woman, less power. CEO, a lot of power. Wealthy, hell of a lot of power. That is an intern and moonlights at a bar. No money, very low power. Sub, literally by definition, less power. Woman CEO, lesser than male CEO, but more power than young male intern. Male, younger intern, extortionist dom? Where does he fit? But ultimately, again, regardless of these jumbling of questions, the issue still stands with like, she's your boss. As the movie kind of jumbles around with the what ifs, it kind of fumbles making a movie in those moments. But anyway, after going back and forth, they go back and forth. She's like, no, I'm leaving. No, I'm staying. No, I'm leaving. No, I'm staying. She's going out to leave and then she rushes back and kisses him aggressively. And he's like, no, I don't want that. I don't want something where I'm not ordering you around. I want the sub-dom thing. Is that what you want? And it's incredibly awkward because it turns into them like rustling on the floor and there's no music and the sound. It's so awkward. It's so awkward. And she's like laughing, but also like grimacing and also like, oh my God, stop. And I get it. That's what it's supposed to be about. Like, oh, I want, but I don't want. And it eventually culminates into him awkwardly suggesting she take her clothes off, which she refuses, but she does agree to get on all fours and eat one of them strawberry candies that you've never seen in the store, but only seen in an old woman's purse at church. He hands her one of those candies and she sucks on it and then spits it back into his mouth. No, that is not what happened. That's disgusting. This isn't much better, but that's not what happened. He brings out one of those that he tells her to suck on and then spit back into his hand. Gross. This eventually culminates into him her while she's on her stomach, which is her preferred masturbatory position. And she comes, possibly for the first time in her life, due to the machinations of another man. And I will say again, movie has a really good realistic grasp on the female orgasm. And, you know, as far as like sex goes in movies, the movie's about sex, but it's not about sex. If you feel me, like you don't see a lot of her body in this. You don't see really any of her body in this scene or his body even. It's just her face and her sound where she's like obviously so overwhelmed that she's like, oh my God, like all this waft of emotion you can see on her face. Like, oh my God, I'm so ashamed. I'm so satisfied. Bitch, I squirted for the first time. I didn't even know I could do that. She growling like she broke her leg. Then she started crying. And he like hugs her. So good on you for aftercare. But it's just this wave of shame and overwhelmed sensation, all a mixture, all of those things and none of them at the same time. So she done hit the pipe. She done tried the drug. Well, she now. She has discovered the feeling that she has been looking for all along. And honestly, if the movie had just focused on an affair, again, with someone that wasn't her intern, this would be a very interesting and compelling conversation to be had, right? Like, it feels like the movie tries really hard to make him seem like the power dynamic is equal if we squint by posing all these questions of like, who is in power? But it's always her. Assuming it's a consensual sexual experience, it's always her. Regardless of how the movie tries to muddy that water, it's still her. She even has power in her willingness to submit. That is its own type of power, regardless of if she recognizes that or not. He has leverage in some way, but the power was hers, and the act of jeopardizing that power was hers as well. Immediately, she bites off more than she can chew when he pops up over her house to deliver her a laptop that she had forgotten at the office, but she's like, oh no, you can't pop up over my house. I have a family, I have a husband, I have kids, like you cannot do that again. And so she tells him that. She pulls him to the side, gets in the car. We're not seeing each other anymore. We cannot see each other outside of work. He gets frustrated, petulant, like a child, because he thought, you know, we were having fun. Like, I don't want you as a girlfriend because you look like a mom and I'm not into that. Like, damn. He's like, I thought we were having fun. But she won't unlock the car because she's like, what if he retaliates against me? What if he tells everybody what had happened and I can lose my job? I can lose my family. I could use everything. But eventually she lets him go and they're both at this kind of like standstill, right? They're back to work on Monday and he texts her to come to the roof, which is where he tells her that he's going to get transferred. She's like, no, you can't. It'll look suspicious. They'll start asking questions. They could fire me. Now, personally, when she started like begging him not to go to a different company, I didn't read it that it was anything about her job. I think this is just the desperation of like her modality for escape was leaving, possibly. So that night when her husband tries to initiate sex, she gets very, very frustrated and she just bursts out that she's never had an orgasm with him. Damn, that's fucked up. He's just like, what? Are you okay? Oh, I felt so bad for her. I was like, oh my God. All you had to do is say that you wanted him to figure you while you're on your tummy. I'm sure he'd oblige. But she's so like frustrated that she leaves the house in the pouring rain. Bitch look haggard to go to that bar that Sam moonlights at. And she like wants to talk to him. And so he goes to another bartender and he was like, tell her to get out of here. And she's like, wait, what? He's kicking me out? He's like, yes, get out of here, you crackhead. The next morning, sweet husband that she got, he's like, hey, can we talk over what that was last night? Did you mean that? And she's like, no, I didn't mean it. I was just like really stressed out about work and I don't know what I was saying. What you were saying was the truth. You ain't ever came with him. And if y'all had effective communication, the movie would be over. Y'all could have figured something out. Y'all could have saw if maybe you needed to do an open relationship type thing where she can get some dick outside of the house and y'all still love each other and have a family. Like, there's options. Get a new toy. Get a sex therapist. But alas, all that money you couldn't get a sex therapist. Oh my God. Off to work. And they're in that same room where she did the interview with him for their first one-on-one. And in this position, he's the one with the power, according to the movie. And he's like, do you want to lose everything? Because that's how you're acting. You're acting like I'm going to take everything from you. That scares the shit out of me, you know, that you think I'm going to take everything from you. He's like, what we do is normal. What we do is consensual. It's giving and taking power. Nail on the head for the movie. Yeah, a little on the nose. It's between us. And again, he can say all that if he wants to, but how extortion works is you did something worth extorting. Just as much as he has a limited understanding of the dynamic between them, he also has a limited understanding of consent as well, which kind of shows in this because he's like, that's what consent is. Both parties need to agree to it. And she's like, well, what if I don't agree? And he's like, well, then I'll tell. Which isn't how that works. Because now there's like a new issue where it's like, oh, okay. Well, did this present a situation where the power dynamic actually is a little different? Because at this point, if she actually didn't want to do this, this is... But I guess the movie is presenting that it's a moot point because she does want to do it. And the thing that is appealing to her is the risk that he could go tell somebody about it. So regardless, he plays with her pussy and she's like, yeah, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. And so they go to a much nicer hotel this time and he tells her to get naked, which is the first time he sees her completely naked in front of him in the movie. And she is like ashamed of her body and this is so vulnerable. And she's like, oh my God, which is crazy because the bitch is ripped. She's ripped. Like her core strength. Do you do Pilates? Bitch, insane. Anyway, he calls her beautiful and she gets all sad and starts like, no, I'm not beautiful. No, I'm not beautiful. And then he hugs her. He's like, you're my baby girl. He said it. Spend a bunch of time with each other and eating and dancing awkwardly while shirtless. And he's also weirdly ripped. I don't know when he had time. They just now ask what is their safe word, which is her husband's name, which is yikes. Well, I guess that will really bring in the reality. He makes her drink milk from a plate off the floor and then he licks her face clean. If someone would have told me that, I wouldn't have been into it. But seeing it, I kind of get it. We do kind of touch on Sam a little bit during this scene. If you've kind of noticed, we haven't really unpacked him as a character much. He's less of a person and just more of this like force that kind of bulldozes in and kind of exposes what's already there. She asks what his sign is, and he says he doesn't believe in that shit. But I think he's a Taurus. Also, if I'm not mistaken, I saw a tattoo on his thumb, on his left thumb. It looks like a Taurus sign to me, but I could be tripping. Maybe it's Pac-Man. I don't know. But I think that's very funny. If he said he doesn't like star signs and shit and he has a Taurus tattoo on his thumb, that's kind of funny. But she has this time with him, this escape with him. And it seems as though it's an escape for him as well. And that reality comes, as it seems to regularly come forth, at a party. She's throwing a party for one of her daughters where she invites Esme, who brings her date, Samuel. And this deeply upsets Romy to the point that she confronts him for dating someone else. Bitch gets her forehead on his forehead and she's like, "You're mine. You're mine." I'm like, oh. Esme nearly sees them together, maybe even does, but she kind of just skulks away with Sam, like, oh, okay. She ended up throwing away that cake, though, and my fat ass got upset. That was still like 3/4 of the cake left. You wasteful. It looked like it had like what, like a blackberry ganache? That looked good. Anyway, so this part did make me laugh. It's honestly the funniest scene of the movie, in my opinion. That Monday, Romy calls Esme into the office, and Esme thinks that she's coming in to get her promotion that she's been kind of talking about throughout the movie. And instead, Romy chastises her for dating Samuel, being that she is in a position of power over him. Ma'am. Esme is like, "I'm sorry, I guess I just didn't think of it that way," which I'm not even sure if that's even true. Like, she doesn't control his job. He's an intern and she's an assistant to the CEO. Y'all are coworkers. Y'all aren't, she doesn't, right? Or am I wrong about that? I don't know. Despite that, Esme is really shaken. She's like, "Oh, wow, I didn't realize that. Oh my gosh." And she's like, "I'm just looking out for you. You messy bitch. You conniving, two-timing, goat-faced bitch." Why goat? I don't know why I said that. She doesn't look like a goat. Why did I say that? Anyway, that night, Romy goes to a club with Samuel. And I'm like, this is hella people in here. Somebody might recognize you. And I'm sure if that got out, that would be crazy, right? But she goes out to this club where everybody playing real loud techno music and doing drugs that cause colors. I f***ed with the beat, though. I'm not gonna lie to you. She finds him in a crowd reaching out for him. Eventually, she finds him, reaches him, and loses herself to the beat. She's a dirty little freak. I'm saying. They break away, and she asks whether or not he does the things that he does with her, with Esme. And he's like, nah, that's not the type of girl she is. I'm different when I'm with her than I am when I'm with you. That's why I like myself differently when I'm with her. And in a weird way, Romy gets like a sense of pleasure out of that because like, oh, I'm who you do the BDSM shit with. With honestly, he probably does it with other people too. This seemed like the type of that goes to dungeons. Again, the BDSM people are a bunch of that play D&D. I don't know personally, so I hear. I didn't go to dungeons, but I dabbled on the outskirts. Like I knew people who knew people. Just a bunch of nerds. I went to a munch though. Shout out to Kat Black. She does munches, and like a year or two ago when I was out in LA, I went to one of her munches and I found out that she was running it. I was like, "Oh bitch, what you doing here?" She's like, "This is my event." I was like, "Oh my god." Yeah, it was just a bunch of nerds. They were nice. Anyway, but she comes home late and Rebel daughter is there, like looking very upset in the middle of the night. And she's kind of like, "I'm worried about you, mom." And she's like, "No, I'm fine. I've just had a lot of work to do. It's gonna stop soon," essentially. Rebel daughter starts to cry a little more because Romy asks about her girlfriend. And you can kind of assume in the way that she reacts that they've broken up. She probably found out you were cheating on her. Bitch. Yeah, feel that shame. That's some shame you need to feel. So maybe you don't do it again. You know, I'll give her some time because she a baby. She like 16. Grow up. So things start to get really real because Esme comes to Romy's house unannounced and she's there to say a few things. She vocalizes her disappointment in Romy, saying that as one of the few women in power, I was hoping that women would be different, but she continually ignored her questions about her future at the company. She then tells her that she wants what she's owed and what she deserves, not just because she's afraid of me. And she's like, "What do you mean?" Romy's like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Because I know about the affair and I only want what I deserve. And I want you to be a good leader and create more opportunities for women. I don't want to take you from the top because there's so few of us up there anyway. What do I look like tearing you down? I am not going to do that. But you will stop seeing him and you will be a person that I and other women like me can look up to. And bitch, you will promote me." She don't say it like that, but I get it. I'm losing opportunities because this bitch want to go f*** an intern the f*** I'm not gonna get promoted by a new guy if they take you down. Promote me, bitch. And she walks her ass out of there. Exactly. Now, faced with the shame in a way that is unavoidable, Romy decides to confess to her husband about the affair. Kind of. It's kind of this like bumbling, weird confession, but I actually kind of like it. It made me very uncomfortable the first time I saw it. I was like, oh, this is... like I started nervous laughing, but basically it kind of starts with her confessing about, again, all of the shame that she has around these dark fantasies, which again, I don't know what these dark fantasies are, because the only thing we've seen you into is like getting smacked on the butt and drinking milk off the floor. Girl, it's pet play. You can put a tail in there. Have some fun. She's like, I have all these horrible fantasies and I've always had them and I've gotten therapy to try to get rid of them and all these things, but I've never acted on any of these horrible fantasies until I met someone. And he asked if it's someone who works under her, and she lies and says no, and it was a stranger and they'd only done it once, so... But the core of the conversation is that something needs to be at stake. And her husband is like, F you, which is fair. He's like, bitch, you cheated on me. What the f are you talking about? It's not about what needs to be at stake. You lied to me. You jeopardize our children for what? To get spanked on the ass? He's like, get the out of the house. Bitch, I don't want to see you no more. Leave. Which honestly, again, I agree with. Like, these horrible fantasies you have, quote unquote, are getting smacked on the butt. Bitch, got a CNC kink. They got books for that. You can get into a megaverse, ho. You don't have to go cheating on your family. Like, you don't have to go cheating on your husband. There's ways, bitch. Get creative. But no, people don't want to think that far. Oy. You could have been poly. Could have had an open marriage. Could have had a conversation with your husband, amicably separated. But no, you want to an intern. Like, what? So, having been kicked out of the main house, she goes to the vacation house, and Samuel is swimming in her pool because he a weirdo to do some weirdo shit like that anyway. And then also weirdo shit. She gets in the pool. Well, he pulls her into the pool with him, and he's like, I could just drown you right here. And I'm like, okay. Like, all right. They get out of the pool and they're talking, and he's like, yeah, we messed with each other's heads, so we're even. And she's like, no, no, we aren't. And during that conversation, in comes the husband, and they get to tussle. They tussle a little. But afterwards, the husband is like concerned about Samuel, apologetic. He's like, she took advantage of you, which is true. But then the husband is like, goes into how the sub woman and dom man dynamic is all male fantasy, which isn't true, like at all. And again, I think this is where the movie kind of bifurcates, like it splits off. And this is where it loses me, because if it didn't muddy things up with him being her employee, I think it would have a very interesting conversation to have about BDSM, the power of submission, like I was talking about before, the choice in it, the playfulness, the communication and consent in it. It could also still be that movie about shame that I think is very interesting because she's having an affair, which I think would be a more interesting and more not concise. I think it would be a movie that stuck the landing. Whereas it feels like it's spending half of the time of the movie trying to defend itself. Like, oh yeah, this is a sticky situation of her explicit status of power over him. Like, it's constantly trying to defend itself in this like, no, trust me, it's like there's a lot going on here. And like when you really look at it, it's really not. Sam does retort saying that the husband's idea of sexuality is outdated and he just doesn't understand it. The husband then has a panic attack and Samuel is able to calm him down, kind of like the dogs, the dog at the beginning of the movie, and even Romy to some extent. And with that, once the husband has calmed down, my bad, and disappears, never to be seen again. The fun's over. Like a typhoon, that just happened and is gone. So in the aftermath, there is Esme, who has miraculously been promoted, and she is kind of like the talking head for the company while Romy is taking a depression vacation at the vacation home. And then the rebel daughter comes to her and is like, hey, I'm gonna need you to come home. Like, dad is miserable. I'm sure he'll forgive you because my girlfriend forgave me for cheating. And he does, just like that. We don't see anything of them like working it out. Just the next thing you know, they're cool. Well, she does come to him him and she's like, it's my fault. It's all my fault. It has nothing to do with you. It's me. I needed to be honest. And but like she does that, but that's about it. And he already forgives her. But I still feel bad for him because he didn't deserve that shit. Anyway, back at work, one of Romy's executive people, he might even be one of her bosses even, comes in and tells her that the intern, Samuel, had moved to a company in Japan, and he alludes to the relief that she must feel that he's gone. So he knows, and he uses this as an opportunity to proposition her. Essentially, he's like, hey, I have my house to myself or something like that if you want to come over or whatever. And she shuts that shit down.
Whatever the fuck you're capable of what you know, of what you don't know, I don't give a shit.
If I wanted to be humiliated, I would pay someone to do it. Now get the out of my office. Pissy, that's true. Thank you. Yeah. She's like, So in the story about shame, this is like a powerful moment where she's like, you. Like, I'm not doing that shit. But anyway, the movie ends with her and her husband having sex again, but this time with her on her tummy. Now has, I guess, the memories of Samuel to rely on. And whether it's the submission, the position, Sam, or just now that her shame has been let go, she's able to come and she is set free. And that's the movie. Again, I remember walking out of the movie feeling like this sense of dissatisfaction. And only after the second viewing with my boyfriend saying like, yeah, that was the end to the movie about shame. That wasn't the end to the movie about power. And that's when I was like, oh, yep. The closing of the story of her shame and the darkness that existed in that secret. But the story didn't do much other than just suggest shit about power. And I don't think that it really did a good job in that. Like, regardless of how they shook it, turned it, excused it, their relationship was one of a boss and an intern. And I think if that didn't exist, there wouldn't be such a period to that. You know, I think there would be more to mull around, more to chew on, but it just kind of stops right there. Whatever intrigue that would have gone into that conversation kind of falls apart because he's an employee. And sure, he can blackmail her, but blackmail isn't as much switching the roles as it is something that happens because you an intern. So I don't know. So there's a part of me that's dissatisfied because she didn't get any comeuppance from that. But also, again, if we're having the conversation about shame, I'm satisfied that that shame has been let go. And that's the disconnect there. As far as the movie goes, I give it like a 6.8 out of 10. A 7. It was fine. What did you guys think? Did you guys watch it? Did you watch it on Christmas, the day after Christmas like I did? Again, it's a Christmas movie. Think of it. Ho, 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 and watch Baby Girl. And Nosferatu. Anyway, that's all for today, folks. If you like today's video, feel free to like today's video. Follow me on my social media, Instagram and Bluesky, both of which are KennieJD. And I'll see you guys next time.